Hi everyone, welcome to episode 22 of One Step at a Time with Chen. And this time, I would like to talk about zero sum and the nature of evil. Now, now to properly understand evil, now what brought all this, right? Well, recently I saw a video of an analysis of evil by Professor Zhang. I'm guessing his name is Zhang Xueqing, I guess. Who knows? But it just made me think, and and I'm gonna post the link in the description, so you guys please feel free to check it out. But it just made me think quite a bit, looking back at things. Now, deep down, I sorta knew, but I didn't know it was this deliberate when it comes to evil, right? And so it made me think. And I actually have been trying to make this video for the last, well, been in the back of my mind, in the back burner for a while, yes, but like actually trying to put it into a video, I guess I was been trying since 3 hours ago. And of course, being distracted by Cyberpunk doesn't help. But I think I'm gonna have a go at it. Now, to properly get to the point where I want to talk about, I think and I probably mentioned this before, but not blatantly, is so a long time ago, my mentor asked me, Charlie, is the world zero sum, right? He asked me when I was like, what? I think he asked me when I was like maybe 23, 24 years old. It took me about 3 to 5 years to actually figure it out. And my current conclusion on it is that the world isn't zero sum in the sense that humanity will always grow, we will expand. So the pie just grows bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so, I mean, in other words, when they talk about like an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset, sure, right? But most of us are not in the position of being there to capture the abundance, right? And so for most people, like in terms of like abundance, like think about Elon Musk's, going to Mars or yeah, and then all the other stuff that comes with like AI and space travel or some other way of existence or resource. Humanity will just be out there and just like, too bad I won't be around for it unless they figure out some weird, like, live forever thing or consciousness prevention, no, preservation thing. But I don't even know if I will have the money for it, right? So that's one. So at that level, humanity isn't zero sum. Now, if you, however, you look at it from a point of view of rate of consumption versus rate of production, then the world might as well be zero sum because we pretty much eat up wherever we excavate, wherever we produce, wherever we take from other places, right? And with things like, I don't know, with things like futures, which is when you bet on, like, you sort of pay for the options to either pretty much, let's say I'm going to let's say you make 500 cans of soda every day and I pay you, I pre-order the next 500 soda from you, and if I don't exercise it, you get to keep the money, and if I do exercise it, it's at whatever price that we agreed upon, right? So let's say if I think sodas is going to jump up by, I don't know, 500% tomorrow because of some thing that I know or something I predict, right? Then I would say, hey, well, you sold it for $10 today. Um, I, I just really like your soda. Hey, what if you and I sign an agreement? I'll pay you $2 now, but I'll buy it for $12 tomorrow for each can, right? And then tomorrow comes, and then it's like $500. But since I already well, not $500, but like I don't know, $15 a can, and then because we agreed upon it, you sell it to me at $12. I can sell it at, I don't know, $14 and pocket $2 with every one, right? Something like that. But so the world is zero sum in the sense that rate of consumption versus rate of production, right? But also, you think about it in terms of karma, right? And and karma would be something like this, right? If you have so for it's something like for good to exist, there also has to exist evil, in the sense that I don't know. So a while back, I was really annoyed because I was sort of like I was working a job that I do like, but the thing is, I was stuck in a bad situation of the job where people brushed their responsibilities on me, and that was before I become awakened, and and as in when I was a worker drone back then, and well, and from my observation, it goes like this, right? And whether it's like picking up after people or not. So it was something like, well, the people who makes the choices. So it's sort of like a 2 by 2 grid, right? Like 2 by 2 grid between responsibility and choices. And so if you make the choice and if you're responsible, great, makes sense, right? And if you didn't make the choice, you're not responsible, that's also fine because you have nothing to do with it. Why you should be responsible, right? But it gets bad of the other two, right? If you make the choice but you're not responsible, like for instance, I don't know, let's say your boss made a choice but it's for you to fulfill, and even if it turns out bad, it will be your responsibility, and if it turns out good, it's for your boss's taking, right? Or on the other quadrant, you have what's it called? You didn't make the choice, but you're responsible, which is the same example, right? The first one where you do make the choice, you're not responsible is prone to abuse, and if you didn't make the choice but you are responsible, well, it just sucks, right? You're on the hook for things that you didn't do, right? And and this also further expands into things like, I don't know, if someone can exist, like they can make lots of money by doing nothing, then that there also exist people who do all the right things or do all the work but gets nothing, right? Or can mix it up. So pretty much, if you have people who can get lots of money by doing nothing, then there will also exist people who do all the important things that keep the lights on and things like that, and don't get any pay or barely any pay, right? Another example would be something like, and that was an observation. It's something like, if you so you're given responsibilities at work, right? So if you don't take care of your responsibilities, then your coworkers are responsible for your responsibilities if you are in a good team, right? And if your coworker doesn't do it, then your manager has to take care of the problem, right? And if your manager doesn't handle the problem, their manager has to take a look at it, right? And it goes all the way up to the top. And if nobody in the company handles the problem, then guess what? The customer take their problems, but also their profit elsewhere, and your competitor will take on the problem and the profit or whatever, right? Now, of course, one can say that some people are not worth the problem, which is true, but generally speaking, when it comes to like being lazy and not taking care of things, right? So the world is zero sum. And I believe a while back I did an interview, and I still hold the belief today is that just because the world is zero sum, how come it's not everyone, but most people use zero sum as an excuse to be bad people. They want to be mean to people because it's like, well, there's only 5 slices of cake. I have to secure my slices, else other people are going to take it, right? And that's not wrong per se, but it it actually reminds me of a movie theater that I've been to this weekend. I went to watch Avatar, and the third one, Fire and Ash, or something like that. And I was in a party of 3, and we were looking for parking, and we didn't arrive there early, so there were just segments of rows of seats in all different levels, right? And then me and another group of 4 got to the same place, and then but I was talking to my party about, hey, there's 4 seats here. But the moment I mentioned there's 4 seats here, the one of the member of the other group just jumped in to just cut in front of us, right? Which, I mean, when it comes to the world being zero sum, and you're put into a situation where there's no assigned seating, aka freedom, right? Well, things like that is going to happen. Now, obviously, it's not worth it to have a fight with them, and then we were able to find another seat of 3 elsewhere anyway. So it turned out to be fine. Um, okay movie. Well, okay to good movie. Uh, and it has been decided. Just a meme from the movie. It has been decided. Okay, now. So we know the world is zero sum, and some people use it as an excuse to be assholes, right? But you have to realize that if the world is indeed zero sum, it also means that if you do some good, maybe you yourself may not benefit from it, but someone else might benefit from it if it is truly zero sum, right? And so it would be something, and it reminds me of the quote of something like, what's it called? Society is made better by old men who planted trees that they don't get to like enjoy the shades under, right? Building for the future. But that's the thing. We live in a world where it turns our blessings, our virtues, into curses. So, like, let's say, for instance, if you're standing firm on a certain kind of issue, then what they do, well, manipulators would change the context so that your stance is somehow monstrous, because no particular stance can be right all the time, right? There's always some situation where a stance is bad. So, in other words, you can defeat the problem with a bigger problem, right? Now you have that, but with a bigger problem. So the world is zero sum. Wait a minute, my mind went blank for a little bit. Gonna pause it real quick. There we go. Just remembered I was talking about how we live in a world where it turns our virtues into curses. So yes, if you have a standpoint, they just change the context on you, so you become a monster. Another thing would be something like, oh, let's say, you know how they say patience is a virtue, right? Well, let's say you are patient, but but patient on what, right? Like, let's say you believe that hard work is going to pay off. It might not pay off now, but it will pay off in the long term. So your patience on hard work is going to pay off. Well, just like the first one, if they just change the laws or change the rule of the game, then by the time you get there, whether it's hard work, saving up money, or whatever, it becomes a curse because, well, and then they'll laugh in your face and say, "Ha, you didn't change You were actually not paying attention the whole time and you didn't change in time because you were too lazy from checking all the news and about the policy changes, right? So you have that. So we went from zero sum, we went to living in a world that changes your blessings into curses. And and in a way we're sort of at the cusp of reaching the point where I want to talk about evil, right? But now the thing with evil, it's it's too simplistic to just attribute it to evil. Like there's a saying that goes, "Never attribute to evil what you can explain with stupidity." Yes, but there's more to it than that. Like I think in today's world, a lot of times evil comes out of either as necessity or as part of a control mechanism. Rather, like, sure, there are people who do evil for evil's sake, but because there also exist people who do good for good's sake, but that's not quite it. So, like, let's say, for instance, looking at people as resources, right? If you're pragmatic about it, there's nothing evil about it. People are resources and they take resources to survive, but for the most part, humans can be useful. Now in Cyberpunk 2077, people are useful, sometimes even as body parts. That's how pragmatic it becomes. Now, is that good or evil? I don't know. In the future where That's the thing. Like in the future where everything is possible as long as you have the money, what is evil becomes very loose, right? Think people die not because they are evil and they deserve it. They're just poor, right? So I don't know. Now we are sort of getting to that point though. That's the thing. Like for instance, we're reaching a point where people are more valuable as excuses for more resources. Like money is made when people get student loans, right? Or I don't know, housing loans, right? Rather than their productivity post graduation. Because remember the three qualities of investment: time, risk, and liquidity, or how many how many hoops you have to jump through to turn it back to money, right? Well, student loans cannot be forgiven, which means, well, it doesn't go away after bankruptcy, so that makes it low risk. Although whether they're going to pay it back or not, that's another thing. But they cannot purge it, so it's not easily to remove. And if you make the student loan and then you sell the loan away right away, you technically got rid of the time that you have to wait for it, right? So and this way, you don't even have to wait to find out if the person is a deadbeat or profitable or whatever, right? Now, putting it this way, it sounds evil, doesn't it? But from a money kind point of view, it's just like, it's almost like placing a bet with people's life on it. Is it good? The humanity in me don't think it's good, but the logical part of me is like, well, that's how things are now. Can we change it? That's what I'm going to get to towards the end. But let's keep going. Secondly, money is made via administration fees when it comes to homelessness, as well as the prison system and divorce courts, right? So when the so George Carlin used to say that nobody wants to take care of the homeless because there's no money in it, right? Well, they found money. You just have to say that you're going to take care of the homeless and you build whatever, and then you take government funding or whatever, or some sort of donation. And, well, How much actually makes it to the homeless people is up to debate. So, but money is coming through nonetheless, right? And you think about the people who are homeless, if they don't get into the homeless administration system, well, they can fall into the prison system, right? Why is homelessness a crime? Maybe, maybe not. But the things that people have to do to survive when it comes to panhandling, collecting trash, which at some places counts as theft of property, it's right, makes me wonder. Well, the human part of me is in pain, but the logic part of me tells me that I need to keep going because the system doesn't see people as people. And this is all to reach a point where I want to get at, right? So people are more valuable as a prisoner because all the money that can be funneled via contracts to the prison system, right? Then you also have divorce courts. Well, that was a bad experience when it comes to divorce courts, but judges get paid, lawyers get paid, the person typing out the script gets paid. You know, everybody benefits except, to be honest, some marriages shouldn't stay together, but when looking back, sometimes people, like if they could have just settled it without getting the law involved, right? And thirdly, money is made whenever initiatives are being announced, whether the initiative is followed through or if the initiative is effective, it doesn't matter. The important thing is the initiative is made and funding is secured, right? So think about all the, I don't know, all the woke issues, and not just on the left. If you think about the right side, about all the different funding, as long as there's an initiative, Doge, right? For instance, wanting to make things more effective, efficient, sure, but nobody tells you where that money is going, right? And did people get their money back? Who knows? Farming subsidies, maybe. Tariffs, yeah, tariffs. Actually, tariffs is a great one. Or the whole immigration thing on the right is pushing these days, right? Well, is it making back? Who knows, right? Important thing is the promise is made, funding is pointed at it, and the rest of it can be figured out, right? So now you might think people are evil or control systems are evil, and they can be from a certain point of view. But as I mentioned earlier, the whole thing is zero sum, right? If you want to have a nation that's always growing, that people are free and is dominant around the globe, you're creating other nations that's not dominant around the world, where their people aren't free and not the best nation in the world now, right? So like for instance, and you've heard about this, like things like when they talk about like phones and things like that, like how like us having everything at the palm of our hand comes at the cost of people mining away in Africa or some other third world country, and and almost sweatshops in China or Asia putting together the different parts at factories where it's so harsh that people want to jump out of the window, but the nets are catching them and things like that. Oh, and I had a joke about that. It was something like I would make a, like if people tell me to go back to China, I would be bad at it because if I jump out of the net net, it will probably break and then I'll just die or something. But anyway, but anyway, the thing is, and it's like zero sum. If you want to create a space where everything is good and nothing bad ever happens, then there also exists a space elsewhere where it can be externalized, where everything is bad and every bad thing possible is happening and nothing good really happens, right? And so don't see all this evil as senseless evil, right? But but now this is by no means of making excuse for evil, but it also, and especially of that video that I mentioned earlier of Professor Jones that I listened to uh, earlier this week, that got me thinking. I think I watched it, like listened to it like 8 to 10 times because it's important. When it comes down to like now, now in his video and in the section that he mentioned is talking about like how people who engage in evil announce that they're doing evil, right? And it really comes down to three parts. The first part is learned helplessness. So like they announce evil, people get now he's talking about like people in power, but if you think about it, anyone, like sometimes you can think about a deadbeat of a family or a drunkard or a gambler or whatever of the family. It can also happen in as small as family unit, right? Or friend group or whatever. It doesn't have to be like government entities. So think about it like this. So the first one is that why evil doers, why people who do evil announce that they do evil, right? The first one is learned helplessness. So the thing about that has to do with like pretty much they do something bad, they announce it, other people are outraged by it, they voice their concern, but nothing ultimately changes and the person keep doing bad things. What that tells the people who are angry and people who are harmed is that this person is doing evil, announcing it, and nobody can stop them. So you're creating, as a control mechanism, a group of people who have learned helplessness, right? So that's one. The second reason why evildoers, oh, it feels so weird saying evildoers do evil is that it forces everyone else to be responsible, right? Because in his example, Professor Jung is like, well, if someone did evil, it's similar to that situation in that World War II thing where people were put on put on trial because they said they were just following orders in doing evil, but turns out they were complicit even because you don't have to follow orders, right? Same thing, but in a little bit different context is that evildoers do evil, they announce it, people know about it. Sure, they may have learned helplessness because of nothing changes, but have they staked their life to stop this evil if it is so evil, right? And if they don't stop such evil, it means that they're complicit in the evil, right? Well, because it's like, oh, they're not doing anything to stop me, right? Then that means they're okay with it, right? So, and the rationale is something like, well, if they ever face judgment and they're being questioned about evil, it's sort of like a crab in a bucket situation where they can drag everybody else who are quote unquote complicit in it down with them, right? And the third reason why evildoers do evil and announce it is because, well, and not just announce it, they have to announce it in a certain kind of way, like on a special day, and this is sort of like Illuminati stuff, and where it's like, I don't know, 1369 or something like that, some weird pattern like that, and pretty much use that to make it so that people overthink about it, people try to analyze it of senseless violence, and it becomes part of the cultural, I guess they call it zeitgeist, the consciousness of society, right? So, like for instance, I still remember 9/11, right? Now I wasn't in America back then, but I remember in the middle of the night, the TV was, I was sleeping, and then I got woken up. The TV was on, broadcasting the breaking news, and my mom just recently met my stepfather, right? And she was crying about 9/11, right? So I still remember it, even though I wasn't an American back then. And so it etches itself. And so with bad guys doing bad things and they announce it, it's because it's a control mechanism. You can't do anything about it. Well, their goal is to make it so that you feel like you're not capable of changing it, and by not doing it, you're now part of the problem. And in a way, if you think about it, like for instance, by the virtue of being an American living in America, I'm benefiting from both the good and the bad America does to the rest of the world, right? And and in a way, I'm complicit in wherever America does to the rest of the world for this, whether it's illusion or temporary, this nice life I have, right? And have no illusions about how the regular citizen don't have blood in their hand. Because when things are going really well, we're we're both the solution and the problem, right? So we have that. So and that's why this brings me to the part that I actually want to talk about, which is, well, which is what do we do about it, right? Because now overthrowing the system isn't good, because that will just make us weak and open us up to foreign nations with no obligations to the people who are currently living here, right? So that's a no-go. Now, another thing that's possible is that you try to come up with a better system. Think about the different companies that try to replace Google's dominance, right? But then, as you know, those companies either get crushed or they get bought up and they become part of the system, right? Same with people. So you have that. And then, of course, running away is always an option. Think about the so-called globalists, right? And even regular people can run away and move to a different country, but it doesn't actually solve the problem, right? And sometimes, just because you ran away from the problem doesn't mean the problem won't follow you, right? And in a way, it's hard to run away, because think about how Americans can be in a different country, but they're still subject to taxation, right? To America. So you have that. So submitting to the system is another way, but but evil won't go away, and it might even be worse, right? And some people will say, well, that's just part of life. And in a way, yeah. And but that's the thing, isn't it? The thing with evil is that it's an it's sort of like the bad part of karma, when it's time to pay, it's possible to push it outward and let whoever that's outside of the benefit system to handle it, right? Like for instance, the phone analogy earlier, right? We have awesome phones, but the pain is suffered elsewhere. Or like think about electric cars, right? Electric cars are really clean, efficient, or whatever, as they say. Whether or not, I'm not sure. But the real cost of those clean energies is actually elsewhere, whether it's coal electric, although I don't think there are any in the US, but to say there are none would be crazy, right? Wind turbines, which something about ecological concerns, and then you also have, I don't know, other forms of electricity generation like dams and things like that. And but somebody or something always has to pay, but the thing is, the impact may or may not be felt by the people directly benefiting from the end product, right? And sometimes they don't care and they don't want to care, right? And but how do you make them care, right? If you fight back, you get crushed. If you somehow overthrow them, you become weakened, and then you get crushed, right? And so now, and coming up with a better idea only really gets you bought out or destroyed, right? And that's the part that's making me think for a long time. Now, the current running conclusion, and I may very well make an update to this video somewhere in the future. It's the current running conclusion is that find ways where evil is unnecessary. Now, I know evil can be externalized, but what if it's possible to go after things without creating pain, well, without creating pain and suffering in this world? And the answer might very well be it's not possible, right? If the world is indeed zero sum. And but I'm hopeful. I want to say that there's a way. And that's what I'll be thinking about. And because there's not a one catch all way of doing all this, but good ideas usually have a certain pattern to them when it comes to things like this. And I guess I'll be thinking about this. I hope it doesn't take 5 years for me to figure out an alternative to, externalizing evil, right? But and it might not even be a fight that I'm supposed to be fighting. Now, of course, another thing you could say is, well, the ancients would have a morality system in a sense that it matches people's rank in the society, right? Like if you're struggling to get by, then you're held to a lower standard of morality because you're trying to survive, whereas people in positions of power are held to a higher standard of morality because they don't have to resort to evil, and it's their duty to make the right choices, right? Possible, right? The more I think about it, the more it doesn't make sense. Well, it makes sense, but finding a solution out makes it really hard and doesn't make sense, right? Like, for instance, when it comes to conflict, I still remember a time, well, I don't remember, but it's romanticized in the sense that the leaders who actually wanted to fight would lead their men into battle, right? But nowadays they hang back in command centers, and you wonder if they actually care about their own soldiers, right? Whereas if they have to put their own life on the stake in the front lines, would they be as non-collaborative as they, or would they be as confrontational as they are, given that they can hide in the command center far, far away, right? And but yeah, the world beyond good and evil, where it's only incentives, right? I don't know. It makes it boring for sure, because then it's just a simple math equation of how can you get the most while paying out the least. And if we reduce everyone's actions, intentions, cultures, way of being into just getting more and paying out less, life is boring, it's dead. And I want to believe that humanity is more than that. So I don't know. But yeah, and this is why it took me so long to make this video. It's not a simple subject matter, and I probably need to bounce this idea off with more people so that I can have a better understanding of it. But anyway, it's getting late. It's almost 2 a.m. I should probably go to bed. I have to work tomorrow, and then I get to have 2 weeks off. So I'm really excited about that. Because working in person is hard. Okay, working in person is really hard. Now, of course, you can say that parents did it, their parents also did it. So, shut up. What is my paying, right? But after 6 years of working remotely, having to show up in person is rough. But on the flip side, I feel kind of good because there's a lot of walking around. So maybe it's for the better as I'm getting fatter. So working out might be what's actually needed to save me, right? But anyway, thank you for everything, and I'll see you guys next week. Now, let me see. Let me look at the calendar. Do I want to promise something that I might have trouble keeping? The 29th. You know what? Either the 28th or 29th, I will make an episode because it's almost the New Year's. So yeah, see you guys either Sunday or Monday. And Happy New Year. And wait. And Merry Christmas. Man, yeah, it's getting late. My brain isn't working. And yeah, I'll see you guys around.